Welcome back, listeners to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that we can do once a month together. And today it's exciting because in this episode, I'm speaking with Dr. Jones, where we're going to dive deep into the intricate world of PhD research within the medical healthcare field. We'll explore the challenges of researchers face, the innovative breakthroughs that emerge, and the often overlooked failings that can hinder progress. Join us as we unpack these complexities of the healthcare research world. But before we can be able to do that, we got to do my mom's quote of the day. So, Mom, take it away.
For what it's worth, it's never too late or, in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop whenever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startled you. I hope you feel things you never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. And if you find that you're not, I hope that you have the courage to start all over again. F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mom, for that quote. It always brings joy to my face to be able to hear your voice, to be able to add this to the podcast. And now going on 107 or 108 episodes. It's just so intricate to the episodes. So today, I've got Stephanie here with me. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Cade.
So the large majority of our podcast audience has no clue who you are. Introduce yourself. Give us like a Wikipedia page summary of who is Stephanie Dr. Jones.
I'd like to figure that out for myself one day, actually.
Life's a journey.
We'll talk about who I am today. So I started my career as a neonatal ICU nurse here at Northside Atlanta.
Okay.
Then I transitioned over to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where I specialized in the pediatric cardiac ICU. Then I was a float nurse, so I floated to the PICU, technology-dependent ICU, NICU at Scottish Rite and Eggleston, and then was introduced to the wide world of healthcare IT.
Okay.
I never intended to leave the bedside. I never intended to not take care of sick babies in the middle of the night. But a friend of a friend said, hey, we're doing these kind of IT implementations and you should come and do this with us. And I was like, okay, I'll take a vacation and I'll use that vacation time to make some extra money. And I did one of those jobs.
Okay.
And I thought, how atrocious. You are doing these go live IT implementations all wrong, right?
Oh, okay.
Because my brain is a process brain. And I was like, this is painful. Like, how dare you have nurses and physicians who are so stressed out about how you implement a system. So I thought, well, the problem must be training.
Okay.
So then I took a training job as I was still working at Children's for 4 years doing this. So then I took a training job. And then I made training based on how you do workflow, which was kind of new back then. People weren't doing that. And I thought, okay, well, I've done a training job. Maybe I should just build this system and it could be better. So I had a friend of a friend teach me how to build it before certifications were required. And then I started building this IT software because a friend of a friend showed me. And then I built what was like a surgery schedule and op time and anesthesia underneath a builder at like Sibley Johns Hopkins. And then I thought, well, my God, you're just not managing the project well.
Okay.
Right? Process brain. It was all process mapping. And then I thought, well, maybe I should just be a PM. Did not know that there were certifications for that either. I never got a certification my whole career.
You're just learning straight by finding somebody and teaching
I saw the problem and said, hey, I could do this better. And then I talked to the person who was in charge of hiring the people who could do it better. And I said, this is why I think I could do it better and you should hire me. So
sell yourself. Yeah.
It was crazy. I didn't even know about selling myself back then. And then Epic started requiring certifications. So then a friend taught me how to build Cerner, which is a competing system for healthcare EMRs. I learned how to build SurgeonNet, did some SurgeonNet build, did some project management. And then I thought, man, you're just doing the whole thing wrong. Somebody should help you make better decisions, right? You're not choosing the right pieces up front. You're not choosing the right modules. You're not choosing the right plan to implement this. The word change management didn't exist then, but I was doing early change management before change management became a thing. And now it's a thing. Interestingly enough, it will be my first certification. After all this
After all this
yeah,
time.
after May 3rd, I'll actually have a ProSAS certification. But before then, I've just not gotten certified in anything, and I was able to learn it and do it, and that's not because I'm a special person, it's because my brain works in a particular pattern.
Mhm.
Patterns make sense to me, I enjoy them, and it's just always been a good deal. And so then I started doing a lot of, executive consulting, so I built an ACO, which is a conglomerate grouping of physician practices from scratch. I made a concierge medicine practice for 4 residents I met in California while I was doing some training, who then called me back when they graduated and said, "Hey, remember when we were talking about doing this?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We'd love to hire you to come and make our business."
Wow.
So I made a heat map. Then you could do it on Google. I mean, there's lots of tools. Now AI does everything, right?
Yeah,
But I
AI is
made
taking
a
over the world.
yeah, exactly. So I made a data mining, basically a data warehouse, and then I data mined CMS website and pulled up a heat map, and then I targeted specific problems that people had, and then decided where they should be based. And then I also compared that in like dimensional maps against private schools, where actual physician practices were located. So they were able to stand up their practice with no building. They all basically have a pay monthly service. You always get guaranteed a doctor if you're hospitalized. Your doctor will come to the hospital and see you.
Wow.
It was crazy. It was like a whole thing. But they're making way more money than they would have made with a whole lot less headache because they're doing it a different way. They're
Mhm.
doing really good healthcare, but they're doing it outside of the model.
And
And
this is
so
on the West Coast.
that's on the West Coast. Then after that, I helped build a software with 3M Corp here in Atlanta. So they had a software that looked at their billing and coding data to try to save money at healthcare organizations. And we proved the concept for that at Metro Health in Cleveland. It was amazing. I loved it. 3M is such a good company to work for. But I had a friend of a friend who worked there and said, "Hey, we're doing this thing, and a brain like yours, come over here. Like this is we
This is for
need you to
you.
come look
We
at
need
this,
this.
right?"
Is what you need.
I didn't know what agile methodology was. I didn't know about making softwares. I didn't know about that. I only knew about building it. And so it was a whole new really anytime I see the pattern, I can use it, exploit it, and make it better. Like that is
Mm.
the power of how my brain works.
I wish I had that power. That's amazing.
It's kind of
That's
a
awesome.
crazy power. I don't have a lot of other powers. That's the only one. But so we built that software. It was amazing, and then it got purchased by an insurance company. And I thought I will never do that again.
Okay.
So what I had put my whole soul and effort into was no longer for good health outcomes. So
Okay.
then after that, I did some other I bought a hospital with somebody else's money. I built a surgery center from the ground up. I just did a lot of stuff in my career.
Yeah, you've been
I've
all over the place. That's
managed
you've got
yeah,
like a full life there. That's amazing.
it's crazy, and people don't get it. Like, if I applied for a CEO role, which I would be qualified for right now, or a COO role at a hospital, they would not even know how to interpret my resume because I don't fit the mold. I don't fit what you see.
You're Stephanie. Yeah.
Exactly. So I went back, I got an MBA, and then I thought, well, because I've been a consultant so long, how do I find a way to show people face up, add a little bit more of that box mentality to what I have? So I decided to go get a PhD in research.
So that's what led to that motivation to
That was
pursue the
it. I was like,
PhD.
let me go actually add some sort of, scientific process, academic acumen to what I do. Let's see how this looks, right? Like, let me go do this. And so I went to Augusta University. I had the world's greatest mentor, Dr. Gianni Silva. And then it's just, it really was a great opportunity for me to, again, see the pattern of research.
Yeah.
Now I'm in what I would mentally call my disrupting of the pattern of research,
Okay.
right? And then, whether or not my consulting career ever goes back to touch research 100% of the time, that's okay. It probably won't. But understanding research and adding that pattern onto the pattern of healthcare business operations, safe and efficient patient care, good population health outcomes. It's one more piece that is now a part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And so I would say if I had one sentence to describe what I really do, not off my resume, I would say that I am an interpreter, not in a language fashion, but more of an ROI interpreter. I could walk your hospital or your healthcare organization, and I don't have to talk to your leaders because they don't have the answers. I go talk to your people.
Talk to the people that actually have the
Yeah.
answer itself because
You give
it's
me
amongst the
yeah.
organization.
You give me
Yeah.
you give me a day or 2 with your people, and I can come back with a 50-page plan on exactly the things that need to be evaluated, adjusted, disrupted to increase your ROI.
Because the people that are actually doing the job themselves can be able to give you the full answers that you're looking for because if they're in the trenches every day, they're seeing it, they're dealing with the programs, they're dealing with the people. And so that's where you're going to get your most data from.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of logical sense.
The patterns for them are intimate,
Yeah.
right? And they're not willing to share that necessarily with their own internal team because of a lot of reasons.
There's a lot of fear sometimes.
There's a lot of fear. Maybe their culture is okay, but they've not been there long enough to really understand it
Yeah.
yet.
They're afraid to speak up on that.
Or
Yeah.
maybe their culture is excellent, but they don't want to rock the boat because I really love it here.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, that happens more than the other. It's
Hmm.
a lot more times people get really comfortable, and they don't want to cause any pain or trauma or
Yeah,
disruption.
they don't want to bring attention to themselves.
Right?
And
They
that.
want
Yeah.
to just
Come in, do
do
their
my
job,
job
go home.
well,
Yeah.
go home, and, that doesn't mean, of course, nurses especially, healthcare providers especially, they're always gonna speak up when there's a problem,
Mhm.
but they may not always speak up when there are efficiency opportunities,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because that draws attention.
Yeah.
They may not speak up when there's waste necessarily, right? But these are things that you can pull out.
Yeah.
And every dollar you can save, whether it's, on your IT systems, every dollar you save on your product, all that, if it was done well, could translate back into better staff ratios, right? Less patients for each nurse who's doing their job. So every time I'm doing these things, my goal isn't to make a hospital a ton of money. My goal is to give these managers and directors and department supervisors some breathing room so
Less stress.
so they can hire more
Yeah.
people.
And they can be able to do the job more efficiently, be able to take care of the patients more accordingly. And that's the big thing we always want at the end of the day. It's kind of like within education or anything, you want to be able to provide the best care and the best capabilities to return the customer back to their best health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that's my work history. And so now I'm a scientist. Now I do healthcare research on top of that. I'm finishing up a postdoc fellowship with the Department of Anesthesia now at Augusta University. I'm very, very fortunate to work with Dr. Andrew Preet Dua, Dr. Zhao Sun, and the anesthesia department as a whole, Dr. Stefan Mahler. They've all have really embraced me and the different way that I look at things. So it's been an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. I can't believe just like what made you choose Augusta as a kind of your home base area? Is that where you live kind of area? Or is it just kind of like this is where someone recommended it to you to be able to kind of locate?
Well, we raised our family up here in Canton and loved it. Traffic kept getting worse and worse. Anybody who
Yeah,
lives in
that's
Atlanta knows that. Like,
Yes.
it's just only going to get worse.
Yes.
And then I thought, okay, we found a great house for sale in Vidalia. We have people from Vidalia. So we moved to the country to finish raising our kids and we homeschooled them. So we thought this is going to be great. We'll transition now. So we moved to Vidalia. That was going to be our forever home. And then COVID happened.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, maybe I should just go ahead and sign up, do my PhD program.
Yeah.
And Augusta was very close. And so we ended up shifting from Vidalia to Augusta just because the PhD program was so intense. And I was also working while I was doing the program, so it was a
That's an
lot.
accomplishment in itself to be
It
able to
was
work in
so
schoolwork
much.
and everything. Oh my gosh.
It was so much. Of course, before AI, right? Before now, I just worry about how, if Grok can pop out a PhD level paper, like that didn't exist when I did my PhD, but it
You did it the
exists
hard
now.
way, the true
Yeah, I
way.
did it the hard. I
Yeah.
think probably my cohort, I would say definitively, are the last to have done that. I don't think anybody who's graduated after us is going to be untouched by AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy that how COVID after COVID, kind of that whole era changed,
Yeah.
everything with technology and whatnot. So, like, specific methodologies that you're using for your research, why did you choose those specific methodologies that you chose?
Well, a lot of it is based on the scientific question you're asking.
Okay.
So I had an interest specifically in pain management practice. So pain management can be provided by some family doctors if they've had the training, by anesthesiologists if they've had the additional fellowship training hours, or by emergency medicine physicians who have had that additional specific training. So pain management is one of the newer fields in healthcare. It's not new, but it's newer,
Okay.
right? We've always had anesthesia kind of thing. And the opioid crisis in our country was insane.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day. But it was all for profit. People made bajillions of dollars
Yeah, they did.
and they're not in prison.
Yeah,
And
which
they
is
should
crazy.
be. An entire
Crazy.
family should be in prison,
Yeah.
frankly, and they're not. But you do your own research, audience.
Yep.
You go look that
It's out
up.
there.
It's out there. But as a nurse, what I saw just, I'm in all these hospitals all the time in my work, right? Even though I'm not taking care of patients in my work, I'm taking care of systems and people. There are all these people who are everyday blue collar workers who are working manual labor jobs. There are everyday people who have had traumatic auto accidents. Think about you hear about accident every single day on the
Yeah,
radio here in
constantly.
Atlanta,
Yeah.
constantly. And these people are left with all sorts of low back, hip, ankle, knee debilitations from their work or from these complex accidents. And these people are having a harder time getting their pain managed
Okay.
because we've become so far on the other side of the pendulum with the opioid crisis, right? That the real people who need these treatments, right? The people who have impacts in their daily activities of daily living, they can't work. They
Their whole
can't
lives been
go
changed. Yeah.
outside all the time when they need to. Their mobility is limited. All of these things that impact them because they deal with pain every day. These are the same people who can't just go to Walgreens and pick up the prescription now,
Yeah,
right?
it's near impossible.
They gotta go through a 10-step system,
Mhm.
and then, my god, if the doctor's office has closed at 5 p.m. and you didn't realize you ran out of medication and now it's 7 p.m., you're not getting any medication. That's not serving those patients and that population well. That started me on the pathway of what are alternative options, what therapy options are out there. So, spinal cord stimulation is a safe and effective alternative or adjunct to opioid therapies
Okay.
for people who are living in pain. And essentially, for the lay audience, I can thread through your back in a procedure room. It doesn't have to be an OR. 2 or 1 cervical or spinal stimulators. They're about, I don't know, 12 inches long, maybe a little less.
About double the size of this pin almost.
Yep. They have a series of electrodes on this device, and they're very, very thin. They're very thin. If you touch them, they're very, very thin. So I can thread this up into your back, and it delivers electrical pulses on each of those. Typically, there's 8 and 8, so
Kinda like a
there's
TINS unit in a
16s.
way?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like a TINS unit that becomes an implant.
Okay.
So I implant this device, and then there's a battery pack that's attached, that's in your buttock, your right or left buttock, and it delivers stimulation based on a programmed rate, And so the way that your spinal cord works from your head to the tip of your fingers to the tip of your toes, there are nervous pathways, right? Your
Yeah.
nerves follow pathways. So if you're having chronic pain, right, the nerve bundles are signaling that pain transmission up your spine. And so if I can disrupt the transmission of the signal, I can disrupt your sensation of pain.
Ooh.
And so that's what spinal cord stimulation therapy does in a
So is this like
nutshell.
a temporary, like it's only in there for a little while, or are you making this like a permanent kind of fixture into the body?
So in order to qualify, and qualifying for insurance is another podcast episode for
Yeah,
another
insurance
day.
is a
It's
challenge
a
in
hot
itself. Yeah,
mess.
it's a hot mess
But
indeed.
in order, if you needed this implant, right,
Okay.
I can't just as your doctor decide that you need it. I have to first prove you need it.
Mhm.
So the way I do that is a temporary trial period of spinal cord stimulation. So you come into my procedure room, we insert, and I say we because the anesthesiologist has to insert.
Yeah, there's a group of people.
Yeah, it's a group of
It's a
people.
team.
Stephanie, as the PhD nurse, is not automatically qualified to put this in your back as an implant. No fear, audience, right? Like, no fear. Literally, the anesthesiologist is doing the work. That's his work, and I'm doing the work. That's my work as the principal investigator. So we put one or two, usually one of these leads into your back temporarily, and we secure them. So it goes, we insert it, it goes in, we secure it on the outside with a particular kind of device or suture or tape. And then we say, go home for 4 days. No bending, lifting, twisting
Okay.
for
4 days.
4 to
Okay.
7 days. You keep it and you tell me what percentage of pain relief you felt. If that percentage is greater than 50, then I can get your insurance company to pay for the implant.
Interesting. And then it becomes permanent after that
And
point?
then you have to come in and then we do the implant in the OR. So that procedure has to be sterile. So we do the implant in the OR and we send you home. We call it permanent about every, I think, 10 years, depending on which device you have. Some need a battery change every 10 years. You could be really silly in your life and say, and this has happened, I just got my spinal cord stimulator implant and I feel great. I'm going to go to Six Flags. Well, you don't want to go on a Six Flags roller coaster
That's gonna jerk
because it's
move you
going to
around.
jerk you
Yeah.
and move you, and those things are going to come dislodged, right?
Yeah. So you have to
You're
be very careful.
right. You don't get a spinal cord stimulator implant and become an Olympic athlete. No, the people who get this implant are people who have to walk with walkers or canes, and after implant, they can walk unassisted. These are people who live with a 7 to 10 out of pain most of the time, and when they get this implant, they can come off most of their medications, right? Or they can take opioids as an adjunct therapy. Like, "Oh, hey, the pain is particularly bad today. I'll
Be able to
take a
add this
pill,"
to be able to
instead of being a
dependent
daily
upon it.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Right, and that's better for their overall system. It's better for the liver, better for the kidneys, right? Less that your body has to do. So the people who really need this therapy, it's life-changing for them, but it wouldn't be when you or I look at the gain, to us, it doesn't sound life-changing, but to them it is. To go from needing a cane to being able to walk, or to go from less control over your extremities to feeling confident enough to drive short places.
That's huge.
Huge.
That is
People don't yes,
massive.
huge. It's night and day the impact it makes in their lives.
Yeah, just to be able to get out, just to be able to spend time with your family or being able
Yeah.
to spend time, you can actually that better takes care of your health when you
Mhm.
get out into your community than rather than being reclusive at home.
Exactly. And so I actually had an aunt who had a spinal cord stimulation that didn't work out for her.
Okay.
And so I was interested in this particular thing. It doesn't work for everybody. There are some people that it doesn't work for. It could be related to a lot of different things, but for her, it didn't. So that really is what kind of focused me in on what's going on in this area. Let me learn more about this. And so then what I found was that having a successful trial period, that 4 to 7 days when we send you home with the temporary one, that successful period was the best indicator of long-term efficacy of the implant.
Yeah, because you're saying 50% or more, then
Right.
it'd be
And so how many people are not getting an implant because they didn't get 50% or it wasn't good enough?
true.
And why would it not be good enough? Because we're securing it on the outside of your back. and we're hoping that it stays in the same place for 4 to 7 days,
Yeah, that's
and it
true.
doesn't.
Yeah, because things shift around, our
It
bodies
shifts
are
around,
move. Yeah.
right? So the most vulnerable people who need the most help, sometimes, even after the trial, they're like, "No, I don't need it. I'm good. It didn't help me enough." Right? So then the thought was, well, how do we make this better? So how are we taping it on your back today? What are the devices we use? What could we do different?
Yeah, how
Right?
can we improve this?
Yeah. And so the how can we improve this became our clinical trial. We did a clinical study. We enrolled 34 patients. It was, I think we had to exclude one. Hurricane Helene impacted us. So that person, although they got the temporary SCS trial period, they had it inserted. Hurricane Helene hit Augusta.
And it stopped
They
and everything,
couldn't
yeah.
get in to get it taken out within the time frame. So because they had it a different length of time than what we allowed for the study, we had to
Mhm.
exclude that patient.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
that
okay.
stinks. But it's
Yeah,
it
but,
happens.
yeah, but, it's all about integrity. That data has to be integral data, and so if you have someone who's different or who falls outside of parameters and you leave the data in, you could damage the efficacy of what you're saying, right?
That's true.
You could be telling a falsehood about what you're saying happened. So that's what we did. So we compared 2 different methodologies. We had 33 patients. It was amazing. So I got to create the entire process. It was really a wonderful experience.
So I'm curious, I'm gonna jump backwards a little bit, like, how long has this how when was this first discovered? Or, like, how long has this been kind of in the works?
Oh, spinal cord stimulation implants?
Yes.
Oh, they've been using them for, gosh, I mean, I'd say two th pretty consistently in the 2000s, but, they they have studied the idea of this electrical therapy
Mhm.
since the '70s, but it's been pretty prominent. I would say that most pain management specialists in the last 15 to 20 years are familiar with this procedure. They understand what it does, they understand the efficacy. So it's common in pain management circles.
Okay.
But if you don't have a pain management doctor or you're not seeing a neurologist, neurologists can do this procedure too without having a pain management certification because it's in your spine, right? So if you're not seeing a neurologist or a pain management provider, you may not be aware that this therapy could work for you. And a lot of people who suffer from chronic pain also have blue collar jobs and they don't always get the approvals to go to pain management
Yeah.
specialist or to go to a neurologist or, the things that need to happen to get you to that
The
level of
steps
care.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a challenge. And then
Yeah.
so how did you get into this, like, originally? Like, how did you fall into this kind of field? Because that seems like it's from your background knowledge from before this, how did you land in this stimulator?
Yeah, because when you research things that you're not interested in, you're wasting your time. So I spent the first year of my program finding a thing that interested me enough and that connected to purpose enough to hold my interest for 5 years of study,
Yeah.
right? And originally, I wanted to do machine learning and AI, and I wanted to do an entire study, particularly AI, because I'd done such early AI work. But there was nobody at the university at that time who had the level of experience that I had in my job who could guide me, right? And so I thought, okay, well, let me get the full research experience. I'm going to step back and I'm going to actually do a clinical trial. And so I started reviewing the literature to decide what current evidence-based practice articles out there. I would literally just read peer-reviewed journal articles every night.
Wow.
I'd
That's a lot
set
of dedication.
it was. I set myself a goal of 3 a night. And so for about a month, I read 3 papers a night, and I would pick them based on random draws. So I would just read these research papers. And honestly, that was pretty integral for me because I'm a pattern person, like
Mhm.
we've already talked about,
Yeah.
right? So you kinda get the more you read, the more you don't understand everything when you're an early student, but you begin to understand the pattern, right? And I thought, "Okay, well, I all right, this is interesting." And then I knew I wanted to specifically look at pain management because of, again, all the issues I'd seen during my work. Like if you're rolling out an EMR at an OR, right? A side effect of doing that as your job is you see what kinds of surgeries are on the board,
Yeah.
right? And when the surgeries on the board are all, back surgeries and hips replacements and knee replacements and all those things go along with chronic pain, right?
Yes.
And so I had heard the stories from patients, through the years of how because of the misuse of opioids, how hard it was for the people who were really hurting to really manage their lives, right? Manage your lives with now a government agency counting your pills and, hoping you got the right amount,
Yeah.
right? And again, we should have these things in place. We do not want prescription opioids being abused by the general population. This is a specialty of the population, and these are the people that I would say generally have what I would lovingly call work-related, accident-related, trauma, pain, like this particular group of people. There are other methodologies and other drugs for people with psychosomatic pain that's different.
Mhm.
I'm talking about people who physically have limitations in their life because of their accidents, injuries, work trauma, right? All those things. So those are the people who are suffering because of the pendulum swing on the opioid distribution.
So this is kind of like really changed after you diving into this research, your perspective within the field, I bet, has changed drastically. How has that shifted, if you don't mind me asking a little more?
Well, it's funny because you don't know what you don't know,
True.
right? And I thought I knew everything, right? Because I know all the things in my pattern. What I didn't know is that this is so layered, right? This problem is so layered for our country. It's layered in a lot of stuff. And what I didn't know was the difference in therapeutic outcome for these patients. The first time I watched a trial patient, because I had shadowed for a while before I even started my clinical trial, so that I could really have defined methods, yeah, everything about my study. I wanted to be exemplary.
Okay.
So I had shadowed for 2 weeks to understand the ebb and flow of how work is done in the pain clinic before I ever wrote my methodology, because I wanted to be really sure that I understand how practices are done there, to evaluate those against the evidence to see if they're evidence-based, and they were. Then to evaluate them against, industry standards to make sure that all of these things match up. And I found 1 or 2 things that didn't. And my
Okay.
doctor said, "No problem, we'll change them now." So that not only are we compliant and we're doing what's best, but in addition, our study is going to be based on, really solid evidence. And so I had shadowed, I'd seen people come and go. I saw them having joint injections. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, like
They
cortisone
do a lot
shots
of
and all
stuff.
kinds of
Yeah,
different stuff. Yeah.
cortisone shots, all that stuff. But I saw a patient come in, and I won't share any particular detail, but I will say that he was known to my physician,
Okay.
not just as a patient, but he was known to my physician in a work-related manner. And so my physician had a lot of respect for this particular person. And he came back after his implant, and it was a completely different person.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first time I met this person, their affect was aggrieved. The way that they held themselves was diminutive. It was pulled in because the pain was so bad that
Overwhelming.
their
Yeah.
resting body position was curled in on itself.
Wow.
And when this person came back and he had a smile on his face and his body was not completely upright, but it was no longer curled.
Crunched over. Yeah.
And I thought, that's joy, right? Like
Yeah.
you have
You've
given
impacted this
him
person's life so
back
heavily.
something
Yeah.
to smile about. Like your pain was so bad that you no longer generated smiles. And now your pain is so relieved that you have a smile. like, get out of town,
Yeah.
right? Like, all
That's
the
what
other
we
s
all look for. Yeah.
Right, that's what we all look for, and so when I saw that, I was like, "Okay, this is it. This is what we're doing this for." My doctors already knew that. They were just waiting on me to figure it out.
They wanted you to see that
Yeah,
firsthand.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were just waiting on me to figure it out.
The
I
aha
was like,
moment.
"I got it. Okay, this is it. This is." And they knew it would happen because 'cause
It
they're
just took
smart.
time.
They
Yeah,
knew.
exactly.
They knew it was gonna happen, right? But, yeah, that's what makes all of this worth it, is that kinda difference. What's really hard is when you do a clinical trial or you do a study and it doesn't work out at all the way you want it to, or
Mm.
you don't get the evidence you want.
Yeah, the failures that
And then
that
you're
come
just
in.
like, "Oh, well, that was for nothing." But it wasn't for nothing. It was all a buildup. So for every success you have 50 failures. And if you don't have 50 failures, then your success is stolen. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, I like that thought
Yeah.
process.
So if you're not making the failures, somebody else did, and you're on the back of that somebody else,
Mm,
right? But if you're making all the failures, then when you get that ultimate success, it's you. It's
you've
your
earned it.
effort, your
Yeah.
motivation, it's you.
So what are some failures you've kind of that y'all have struggled with
Oh
over
gosh, what kind of failures have I not struggled with? Well, specific to this process and
Yeah.
research, yeah. So I will say that now things are different. AI makes everything different.
Mhm.
But I started with a systematic review and meta-analysis of my topic before I created a clinical trial, and I think that's good practice. I think you should know what the evidence says before you design a trial, right?
Yeah,
How dare you design a trial when you don't know what the evidence already says,
that's
that
true.
people have already done? So I did a systematic review and meta-analysis, and that just means for the lay audience, it means that I went and I gathered all the articles that were related to my topic. Then I decided which ones should stay in and which ones should be excluded based on, is this good science? Right?
Mhm.
So all the ones that were good, we left in. And then I reviewed them all and I made like data columns. What does this one say about steroid use? What does this one say about whatever the things are? And so out of each of those little papers, I pulled key details about the therapy. And then I said, how many papers agree? How many papers disagree? And then that gives me a preponderance of evidence, right? No research paper can prove anything. Research papers only provide evidence.
Yeah, it's putting it in theory.
Yeah. And it's the preponderance of evidence which can allow you to then branch yourself out to decide you want to try something.
Okay.
So nobody should decide they want to try something until they've looked at the preponderance of evidence to see if anybody's already done it, right? What their outcomes were, what their barriers were, maybe what you could do different. So I started with that. And then the preponderance of evidence suggested that yes, there does need to be some improvement in how we structure the securement during this temporary 4 to 7 day trial period. Because if you have a trial to implant ratio, so if during the spinal cord stimulation trial period, if 60% of my people proceed to implant, right?
Mhm.
What happened to those other
Oh, the
40%,
40%, yeah.
right? Why?
That's true.
There are a few people who it doesn't work for, but that's not a lot of people, right? So 60% is bad. It's not very good. At our pain clinic, our trial to implant ratio when we started was, oh, don't quote me on this because I don't remember the numbers. Let's say 86%.
Estimated.
Yeah, estimated 86%. And then the trial to implant ratio after was about 92%,
Wow.
which is interesting, right? So they were already doing a great job,
Yeah,
right? They were
that's
already
pretty
doing a
phenomenal.
great job. And so now, we can just see the extra attention of the trial, right? So the extra attention, just the extra attention of doing this trial caused everybody to pay closer attention to exactly which securement method, A or B, they were using to secure these. So that I firmly believe that the extra attention alone increased our trial to implant ratio, right? Because we were so intentional. Like I would take a picture of each step. So, group A, they got a suture. So we would put this little plastic butterfly piece. It's like silicone. We would put that on the lead. We would suture it down with 0-6 suture. Then we would make a strain relief loop. So for the strain relief loop, we pull the bottom of the lead and we create a little circle and we tape that circle down. Then, if the lead is pulled, that circle is strain relief. That's why they call it a strain relief loop. So instead of pulling it directly out of your back, right, it pulls against any kind of tension pulls against that strain relief loop. So for group A, because we had two different groups, for group A, we then taped with some special tape on top of that loop to hold it down. And then we put a device called a stay fix anchor. It is a square dressing with a plastic channel in the middle.
Okay.
And the square device goes right on top of the strain relief loop. And this part doubles back into the plastic channel. So now, not only do I have strain relief from this part pull in when it hits stuff, right? Because this is connected to an external battery. So I have prevention there. And then I also have prevention because this is locked into a plastic channel inside of that dressing called a stay fix. So it's two methods. Now, contrary to popular belief, you would think that sounds really secure. Previous studies have shown that suturing actually causes a bigger issue.
Really?
I know. There was an older study that showed that taping alone was better than suturing. And I thought, that's amazing.
I would have never imagined that. Yeah.
Me neither. So, in order to test our theory of this stay fix device, which we think works phenomenally well, the second group, group B, we did create the same strain relief loop, but we didn't have a suture.
Okay.
So our device, our little tiny thread wire that's inside of your back, comes out from the exit point. At the exit point, I do a strain relief loop, same curled it back on itself, taped it, no suture. And then I put the same dressing called a stay fix, and then we bring this part back on itself into the plastic channel. So it has only the tape loop and only the plastic channel. And group A actually had the suture and the plastic channel. So that was kind of the basis of our research, and that's what we were looking at, is to see, is there a way that has a higher percentage? So many things can impact the efficacy of the trial period, even your own body. So let's say that you have limited mobility,
Okay.
right? You're probably moving a lot less than the person who doesn't have limited mobility but had a car accident.
True.
Right? They have a lot of pain, and they've had pain for a long time, but they're 40 and you're 70. Right? There's going to be
There's going
some
to be a difference there,
differences,
yeah,
right?
because of
So
what you can move.
yeah, so we call all those demographics, so age, sex, BMI was one of our demographics. We also looked at the differences between our two groups based on whether or not they had diabetes, whether or not they had hypertension, whether or not they had multiple medications. So that was actually interesting. So polypharmacy, the definition of polypharmacy is a person who is prescribed 5 to 7 medications. And then there's like this hyper polypharmacy, advanced polypharmacy, which is like 10 or more medications. Our patients on average had 16 medications prescribed.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's a lot of you're having to look for.
It's a
is this causing
lot
this,
of
causing
drugs.
this,
It's a
this
lot
causing
of
that.
drugs,
What's
right.
the side effects for that?
Yeah. So we definitely were evaluating for polypharmacy to see if people who were on a higher level of more medications were being impacted. That's also a podcast for another day.
So the age, I'm curious, you mentioned about age. Did y'all have a specific age range you worked with, or did it matter on the age range?
Oh, no, we only enrolled adults who were over 18.
Okay.
So, I don't know that this therapy is approved in children unless they have maybe specific
So you're only dealing with adults at this
defects.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is only adults. And, I would say that I mean, I did not expect that we were gonna have young people in our study, and we did. So our
Yeah, we
youngest
never know car wrecks and all
I
that
know, right?
that's
Our youngest was 23 or 24, and our oldest was, I think, 81. So it's a pretty good range.
Yeah, that's a very wide
Yeah, it's a
range.
wide range, yeah.
So did y'all collaborate with, like, multiple, like, hospitals to be able to do the study or different, like, offices, or was it just, like or
We
did you
should
stick
have.
this into one office?
Yeah, so because at the time when I started this, I was a PhD student. So I was unfunded, didn't have any money. I was doing this on my own,
Oh, wow.
right? So for me, I had access to the pain management clinic because they were associated with Augusta University. So we only did their pain clinic. In retrospect, my study would have had more validity, and the next study will likely be the same exact study repeated in different pain clinics in different areas,
Mm,
right? So my study was in a pain management clinic that belonged to a medical academic facility, right? So that can impact my study results because I have fellows who are participating in placing these leads, right?
mhm.
So, but a non-medical academic facility may only have the attending physician placing these leads. So there could be some training
That could be a
differences,
big drastically
right? There
different,
could
yeah.
be a million little things like this is exactly why researchers should never take one tiny study like this as proof. That's why it's only evidence. So this evidence from my study should now be replicated at other facilities to see if we find similar results. And that's kind of how the scientific process worked. When I went to get this PhD, I will tell you that I was non-traditional because I'm older, right? A lot of the PhD folks are a little younger in their career, they're starting out. So I came at it from a different vantage. And Raymond Chong at AU was the director of our program then. He's an amazing man, an amazing researcher, an amazing scientist. And he particularly made a program for people who were already in healthcare.
Okay.
So in my cohort was me with my nursing and healthcare IT background, 3 clinical lab specialists. So like CLS, MLS, like people who run the lab, they're doing genetics, they're doing blood banking, they're
That's what my
doing
wife does.
yeah, they're doing
Yeah.
all the stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then the 5th person was an OT specialist who specializes in lymphedema therapy, right? So we were all non-traditional. We
Yeah.
were all adults in this program. And Augusta at the time said, "We love that we're promoting science with young people, but we should be promoting science with industry experts." Right?
Ah.
So the College of Allied Health Sciences deliberately began targeting people like us to say, "Come to our program. Let us teach you the science that's informing the care you're already delivering." Right?
Yeah.
And so in my cohort, Hari Kashyap in Augusta, if anybody has lymphedema, you should go see him. His therapy clinic's amazing. But he works, his facility is in the Georgia Cancer Center, but he is doing amazing research now with lymphedema therapy. He specializes in lymphedema therapy post breast cancer, and he has other specialties too, but that's a particular area. But his research is amazing. Shafisha Cummings was in my cohort. She now lives in New York, but she was studying multiple myeloma and bartholomew resistance. But somebody who already knows how to do, laboratory work, right?
Yes.
Think about the added value of that in research. Giti Bahagi, she lives here in Atlanta in Marietta. She was trying to see if there was a gene variant with mCAR that would relate to obesity,
Oh, okay.
right? And so she did PCR panels, like stuff that is just not normally
Not
done
traditionally
without
done, yeah.
big money research
Yeah,
because you got to pay for these things,
that's true.
right? So every single one of us did what I would call big dollar research without a single dollar, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Now, one of our cohort, Kendra Buffkin, she did get some grant money. She had applied for an institutional grant. She got an institutional grant to pay for some things, and I think Shafisha got a research grant from somewhere also to pay for because the equipment to do these tests is expensive.
Mhm.
So they did get grant money for that. But I mean, it's a great program. I would highly recommend it to anybody who's already a healthcare seasoned person who really would like to explore how we get this evidence. Because in healthcare, everybody says evidence-based practice, evidence-based care. This is all what we all wanna
Mhm.
do. I'll tell you, before this program, I didn't know what that meant. After this program, I'm highly suspicious of what it means every time I think about it.
How so?
Well, because there's a huge misalignment between, how do I say this? Let me say it the nice way,
Okay.
okay? All right. Also, as an older adult, I went through this program. If I had known in the real world that people did not pay for your intellect, that you had to write grants and beg money from the NIH or WHO or corporations or big pharma so that you can go investigate the things that are interesting to you, I would have never signed up.
Okay.
So there is a misalignment between who's paying for the research and who's doing the research and for what purpose.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So the NIH is so political. It's almost, who do you know?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah,
That's
it's
unfortunate.
not just unfortunate, it's dead wrong.
Yeah.
It's how we end up with the Faucis of the world who are saying one thing, who are ensuring that some things get printed, and it's not in the best interest of health. It's in the best interest of
That corporation, that
whatever,
industry
whether it's
is backing it.
corporation,
Yeah.
government, shadow government, big pharma. I don't know, right? BlackRock, State Street, who knows? It's in somebody's interest,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't align with researchers. So when I think about the geniuses, the real geniuses, right? In my generation, there's a few, right? Elon Musk is after me, but we'll just use him because everybody knows who he is right now because
Okay.
of SpaceX and
Yeah.
Tesla. When I think of him, I think of what true genius is, which is being able to see and envision all the patterns and then where those patterns could land up with infinite variables, right?
Okay.
I feel like I don't know him, don't know much about him, but when I hear him talk, I almost feel
You
like I can follow
recognize
that
that's
train
there. Yeah.
process, right? Well, where are the Elon Musk of healthcare?
That's true.
Where are they? They exist. I've met a few of them. Dr. Worley has tons of patents. He made Worley wires for the cath lab. Anybody who's ever used a Worley wire, you Charles Worley created them out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He owns the patent. They exist, right?
Mhm.
I understand that the purpose of the NIH was really initially to promote the health and wellness of Americans,
Mhm.
but that's not what's happening.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think that the system as a whole, back to pattern recognition, right? The system of the whole system of how we do healthcare research in our nation, at least. I think everything comes back to people, process, technology. Everything. People, process, technology in business and healthcare and everything. So in research, we should evaluate research as a methodology with people, process, technology. The people, by and large, are good. They have good ideas. They want to do good things, right? They want to do good science. They want to be integral people. They want to get the Nobel Prize for whatever their thing is because they did the science and the science backed up their thought process. And this is amazing, right? They want that.
Yes.
The process that goes along with that damages that kind of person, right?
Mm. Okay.
So the Stephanie who would love to do research
Stop. It's your
is
gatekeeped.
not going to do that process. I'm not going to write a million grants and beg you for money for a great idea I already have. I'm going to work around you, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go express my interest in another way. I'm going to find the next thing. There's only so much I'm going to do in your process before that process becomes such a burden that it kills creativity. It kills science. We have a process problem with research in our country. And then the other part is technology. AI is bridging the gap a little bit on some things. It's helping a lot with exploring the evidence that's already there and understanding it for lay people. I have more patients who are looking at the research now than in the history of patient care.
Okay.
So there are programs like, of course, ChatGPT, Gemini. You can ask Gemini, "Hey, Gemini, what is the evidence-based practice recommendation for
XYZ.
whatever?" And it'll pop you some stuff out. Now, whether or not if it's correct, we don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's
Use
the challenge.
Bard. Yeah, I would highly recommend that you use Bard if you're looking for evidence-based practice, because Bard can act as a researcher for you.
Okay.
But there's Consensus AI. It's an amazing platform. Consensus AI is connected to all of the electronic literature drops, right? So I did my systematic review and meta-analysis by hand. But now, in 5 minutes, if
It
I
can
have a
do.
new topic, I can go type in Consensus AI, tell me what the research is over the last 18.5 years on spinal cord stimulation during the trial period, include blah, 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 exclude blah, 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 and then it will give me all those articles that I spent a very long
Time
time,
to be able to find.
right?
Yeah.
So the tools are going to bridge the gap for the layperson and for the healthcare worker.
Okay.
The AI tools are going to bridge the gap. The AI tools are going to cause a problem for those people. So remember, people, process, technology. In that people bucket, we have really great people who want to do good things. The smartest of the smart, the most creative, can't tolerate the process, right? Those people may be able to leverage AI to get through this complex process. They may be able to leverage AI to
To be able to
do
do other things to help
maybe,
them. Yeah, maybe.
right?
Possibly.
Maybe. But some of the people, because every family has a crazy. I got a couple, right? Every family has probably a drug addict. Every pool of researchers has somebody who's not as ethical as you'd like them to be. Someone who struggles with personal integrity in their life,
Mm.
right? Let's say 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000 struggles with personal integrity. For those people, they are the dangerous ones because
Gotcha.
they will use AI to mass propagate incorrect conclusions.
And that throws a whole entire study for a complete loop.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could lead people down a train that they're following that they never should have. It can lead other researchers astray because this looks like real evidence, but it's not. It's not repeatable.
It's kind of like you can do 1,000 good things, but the one bad thing is the one that's going to be remembered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or unfortunately, people spend 2 years trying to replicate it and then they can't. And you've wasted their time because you didn't tell the truth, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
reading one article is never enough. Replicatable research is where evidence comes from. So in order for me to replicate your research, and the journals have gotten much better about this over the years, but I need to have your data files. It's not enough for you to write a pretty paper. I want all of your data so that I can do the mathematical modeling myself and make sure that you're accurate.
That
Right?
makes logical sense to me. Yeah.
You got grant funding to do your study on XYZ, right? And let's say that you got that funding from a pharmaceutical company, right? Because everybody's picking on big pharma these days, so let me pick on them too, right? So you have a vested interest in getting the outcome,
That's true. You
right?
have something that you're wanting specifically. They're looking for something specific.
That's correct. And so if you already struggle with personal integrity, right?
Yeah.
Imagine how that could turn out. But the reason that having your data is so key, so it's not just enough to have your data file, but I need to know your methodology. I need to actually run those numbers and see if they measure up. And we hope that the peer review journal process does this. We hope that the scientist who received your paper and is judging it and letting the journal know, yes, we'll take this for publication or no, we won't. We hope that person is doing the math. We hope
the
that
mathing is
person
mathing right, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that person is validating. I hope that person is checking your references,
Not skewing.
not
Yeah.
skewing. I hope that person did not have one too many glasses of wine, right?
Yeah.
While they're reading your article. I hope a lot of things. The peer review process needs updating.
Okay.
right? We've done it the same way for a long time. We need updating. And there aren't enough peer reviewers for the journals that exist. The journals are making money. You know how much it costs to publish a paper?
How much?
Well, for me, it was $900
Oh, really?
out of my pocket. Yes, that's correct.
To publish? Wow.
To publish. So some of these now, not every journal charges a fee, right? Different journals have different impact factors. So an impact factor is a grade for a journal of should I believe you. So journals like Science have very high impact factors, right? Smaller journals that have been in business less time have lower impact factors. So as a good researcher, as a quality researcher, I want to target a high impact journal, right? A high impact factor journal because I want my research to be taken seriously, right?
Mhm.
So as that impact factor goes up, the barriers go up,
Gotcha.
right? Now you have to do more stuff. Remember those crazy creative peoples, right?
There's
They
a
don't want
wall.
to do all that
They don't wanna do
process.
that process. It'll
I've
mess
already
up for
found
them.
this really cool thing. Now you're gonna make me go do all this for you too? Like, the process is it's not just grant funding, it's publication, it's speaking, it's all of these things, right? Like, the process is what's so hard. I think the next person who is gonna make a real change in healthcare is gonna be the person who assigns a different process to getting these things done, who removes those barriers and supports good science through the process. That's what I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So really, you've given some good information about the future of where you kind of want things to go with your study. Where do you see the future of the study that you worked on with the back stimulator going?
Oh, so your question earlier was so good because that's where it's going. We have to repeat it, right?
Yeah,
It's not enough to do a study once. So we need to engage other pain management clinics to participate and to do similar studies. So that's the next step.
so you're aiming to, are you sticking out, are you trying to go outside of state, outside of country? Or are you sticking
I
to like,
I don't want to go out of country because that's not again, that's not there's lots of research that should be done lots of different places. Spinal cord stimulation therapy is being done all across the world.
okay,
I don't have the resources or the time to do studies across the world.
gotcha.
And I also am an American. I'm completely comfortable doing the studies on the American population. So for those reasons, I'm okay. If some other country reached out and said, "Hey, we'd love you to come do this here," sure, I would. But that's it's everything cost time, effort, or peace, right? So I think I'm going to just stick to the U.S.
Gotcha. That makes sense because
Yeah,
in order to, you have parameters and you got to be able to, how a country may be able to do their suturing or the way that they will do it will be different. And so it's
yeah,
skew the study
yeah,
entirely and change it up.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's just a lot. It's not even just skewing the study. It's just money, right? So the job of a scientist now is part beggar. You're begging for money.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
So instead, I do really want to I've written this out. I'm going to IRB with it soon, but I do want to do there's a beta serum endorphin trial that could happen with spinal cord stimulation implants that would be an objective measurement of pain relief, not
Okay.
just me depending on you telling me, Kate, oh, my pain's a 5 out of 10.
You could be able to measure
I
it
could be able to
physically.
measure it objectively. This study's been done in other populations, but not in spinal cord stimulation implants, which I think is the most appropriate population to do the study. It's been about 6 months since I looked at the literature, so there may be one now that I haven't looked at in the last 6 months, but the last time I looked, nobody had done this study.
Yeah. So
So
that's the next direction that you're headed.
yeah, that's the next direction I'm heading, but in my work life, which is different than my research life, you know, if I vision cast for myself what research would look like for me as a job, it would be that process change, right? It would be finding my 6 degrees of separation to whoever is the person who's responsible for running the NIH. And instead, it would be, it's funny because you hear people say, drain the swamp. Nowhere does the swamp need to be drained more than the NIH. So it would be taking over an agency or an oversight department that would then hold them accountable to the mission of what they should be doing
Okay.
and hold them accountable to funding that creative genius science and making the process simpler for those people to get what they need to do a good job for us, the American citizen, right?
Gotcha.
I don't know anybody. I'm not political. Obviously, this is why I consult,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I'm a consultant
You
for a
have your role.
reason. I love what I do. I love going hospital to hospital and solving problems and making things new but that's it's part change management, it's part cheerleader, it's part subject matter expert, it's part listener, it's part executive advisor, right? It's part of a will and determination normally. But, as I go forward so my next consulting role is gonna be at Yale New Haven, and, even as I go there, my thought process is no longer what can Stephanie do individually for research. The process is, okay, as I'm embarking on this job, hey, what researcher here would like to partner up during this work I'm doing for you? And let's do some pre and post evaluation of what this looks like. And then let's publish it. Let's
Nice.
show people the interior of how IT rollouts look in healthcare and what we can learn from this. How can we make this part better? So I want to use it in my everyday job, not just in this kind of way that I'm using it in the postdoc fellowship.
Okay.
I think research is for everyone. I don't think you have to have a PhD to do it. I think you just need to understand what the methodologies are. I think you need to understand who in your hospital does research. There are researchers at every hospital in Atlanta. So if you're saying to yourself, I'm a NICU nurse, I sure would love to know if we did this, how would this look? Find a researcher at your hospital and say, I'd love to be on your research team. This is a really cool topic. I would love to study, and this is why. Your researchers will be overjoyed that you've bought them some really cool new topic. Or they'll say, hey, I'm already invested in doing this. Would you like to join our team?
I like you're giving a call to action.
Yeah,
Like,
like do the thing. Understand how it looks from the inside. It's not, they always say publish or perish, but even that feels old. I think innovate or die.
there we
Right?
go.
What am I publishing for? Like, I get it. Like, I'm paying money so that you can read my article. I'm paying money so that you can read my article and it can be peer reviewed, and then the general public can read my article. But where is it being implemented in practice? There's a huge gap between publishing the evidence,
Yes.
evaluating the evidence, and putting that evidence into practice.
Oh, definitely. Oh,
That's
yeah.
the gap, right? That gap is not gonna be overcome in this current people process technology. Process is so shady, they don't even really adjust for this gap. The people who fill the gap now are like, the associations, right?
Okay.
Those associations aren't trustworthy, right? The American
Unfortunately.
Cancer
Yeah.
Society, the American Heart Association. I mean, all the systematic review and meta-analysis of statins show us a very different story than what the AHA says. The AHA diet is a joke, right? It's not good for heart health. We already know the research. There's the preponderance of evidence says the opposite of their recommendations.
Wow.
But that's who controls the gap in a lot of cases, right? Now, real innovation, CRISPR-Cas9 therapies, things of that nature, they'll always bubble up,
Yeah.
right? But it's not about the 10% rule. What about the 90% evidence down here that could help you and me right now and that's not being used because we've never put it into practice?
That's fair. Yeah.
So, whoever cracks that code open, or if somebody would love to work with me to crack that code open, I have a million ideas. All I need is apparently money that I have to beg for and or in research, right? And or huge political power to put the future I can already envision into play. But we got to bridge that gap. There, I think, are some systematic ways to do it to get that other 90% of evidence out that would be useful. but you gotta have a team to do that kinda thing.
So
It re
collaboration is very key.
Yeah, interdisciplinary collaboration, is really the key. But more importantly than that, it's not even interdisciplinary anymore, right? When we say so for the audience who maybe doesn't know about this, in healthcare, there's been this push to interdisciplinary education and collaboration. They've had a couple of really big level meetings on it. How do we push this not just at the bedside, but in school? Like, how do we get this interdisciplinary approach, down for healthcare? We need something more than interdisciplinary. Whatever the next stage up is, we need patients represented. We need public politicians represented, federal, state, local level. V We need involvement beyond us because healthcare is struggling under the burden on, like, a 2 to 5% margin,
Oh, wow.
right? Yeah, it's crazy.
That is
Other
that is
businesses
nuts.
would fail.
Yeah.
This is
Ha
why we have
horrible.
300 hospitals that have closed in the nation since COVID,
Unfortunately.
or since 2012, since the Affordable Health Care Act. We've had, I don't know how many have closed since COVID, but we had almost over 300 after the 2012 Affordable Health Care Act, and nobody's talking about it. They're all in rural places. You know why? Because nobody really cares if grandma has to drive 3 hours after her stroke now instead of 30 minutes because they closed her local hospital. But I care.
Oof. Yeah.
Population health cares.
Yeah.
All the grandkids care, right?
Exactly.
So it's more than taking care of the patient is no longer interdisciplinary care at the bedside. Taking care of the patient now is alignment between political interests for the country. How does that align with best patient care practice? And how do we protect our hospitals? How do we protect healthcare organizations, whether they're profit or nonprofit? Either way, right? I mean, some of our hospitals today are almost like real estate companies, right? Because they've had to
Unfortunately.
diversify.
Yeah.
They've had to.
Yeah.
On a 3 to
In order to
5%
survive.
margin,
Yeah.
everybody has to.
You have to.
So they do what they do, and that's okay. I'm not this is not a dig at hospitals. The dig is at the misalignment between the people who make money off the hospitals, not great population health outcomes, and politicians who don't understand it,
Mhm.
right? So it's really intriguing. It's a lot to study for any researchers who are looking for a topic, right? But the hospitals, we can't, patient care will not stand up under the weight of high staff to nurse ratios. It will not stand up under the weight of ridiculous compensation packages at the very top end and ridiculous contracts and, from companies who are trying to make money off of healthcare. So it's just a lot. It's a lot.
So if someone wanted to reach out to be able to connect with you, what are some ways that we can be able to connect with Stephanie?
Oh, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I guess you could contact Cade and he'll give you my phone number.
I'll give you some connection.
Yeah,
Yeah,
do it,
that'd be
yeah.
a great way.
Yeah, knock it out. Do whatever you want. I am completing my postdoc fellowship. Everything's really done at Augusta University. So the Department of Anesthesia at Augusta University, you can reach out to them. They can get you in touch with me.
Just kind of you've dropped a lot of knowledge in everything today. What would you give to someone just in general, just some worldly advice to kind of as we wind down here?
To anybody? Or what's
Just to
the
any given person walking down the street listening right now, what was just some advice you would give somebody, just a words of wisdom to kind of send us out on?
mm, well, I'm a Gen Xer, right?
Okay.
I'm also a researcher, which means I'm curious by nature. But my advice would be I'll give you some personal advice and some professional advice.
Sounds good.
Personal advice would be put God first, walk in your integrity, understand that everything in your life is integral to how high your integrity level is. The higher your integrity, the more confident you are. The higher your integrity, the more trusted you are. The higher your integrity, the more you'll be able to impact change, period.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what field you're in, doesn't matter if it's your family, doesn't matter if it's your neighborhood. There's something to being trustworthy. And there's something to being trusted. There's an exchange that happens really at the soul level when people trust you and when you can trust other people. And we've lost a lot of that in general.
Yeah, human contact has been
Yeah.
kind of separated a lot by technology.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of that. But I'll say, just to be funny, because I can be, but I would say in healthcare and research, trust no one,
Okay.
right? That's my Gen X reference. Trust no one, right? Go
Find
all
it
the
out for yourself. Yeah.
Find it out for yourself. The evidence is there. We live in a time where information is so prevalent, it's confusing, right?
Yeah,
But seek
definitely.
it out. Seek out the information, seek out the data, look at it for yourself. Do not take the first answer from your physician. Ask them for their differential diagnosis. If you're still unclear when you leave your physician's office, then you say, "Hey, listen, is there someone else that I should consult?" Your health is really up to you, and everything that we do in research is great, but the truth is an ounce of prevention has always been worth a pound of cure. And whole food, real food, decrease microplastics, right? Feet on the ground, facing the sunshine, it's always gonna be a million times better than whatever we have to do later to fix you.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, thank you for coming out, spending your day with me because you've had a long drive today.
Yeah.
You made the time to get up this way. So I appreciate that and coming and spending your time with me this afternoon. And guys, as we kind of start to wrap up here, if you want to be able to reach out to me to connect as well with her, my email is Cade, which is spelled CADE at learningfromfriends.com. I have a Facebook page. I have a Patreon page if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast. We're under Learning from Friends podcast. I'll have links in the podcast to be able to description to be able to help you be able to reach out to her through her LinkedIn page, and you can be able to have my email and stuff as the web there to be able to do so. So as we leave out today, get outside, enjoy the day. It's a little bit about to rain, it looks like, but we need the rain, so thank you for the rain coming in. But most of all, don't forget, let your curiosity fly high.